Now I would like to invite Fred Streefland to the floor. Fred is currently the Director of Cybersecurity and Privacy of Hikvision for EMEA region. And since 2008, he was working in several roles as a consultant, advisor, CISO, CSO within the cybersecurity industry after 20 years as Officer Intelligence and Security in the Royal Netherlands Air Force. So quite impressive portfolio, and we are really looking forward for your sharing of your views and your experience. Fred, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Migle, for this opportunity, and good afternoon, good morning, good evening to all the participants listening. So I will share my screen, and I will also make sure that the sound is there, and I will also start with the first slide. So thank you very much, and in the next 15 minutes I will shortly introduce the privacy dilemma in video surveillance, and also thanks to the previous speaker. Probably he went to bed, but if he's listening in, thank you very much, good story, and especially the question, more data or more privacy, that's the dilemma I'm going to discuss here. And I have a subtitle here, Challenges of Technical Change, and that is from a study that was done in 2007, so more than 13 years ago, by the UK Royal Academy of Engineering. And you see the footnote here on this slide, since you get the slide. So I would recommend you to look this up, because that's also about this privacy dilemma, in this case, in video surveillance. As mentioned, my name is Fred Streefland. I'm the Director of Cybersecurity for EMEA for Hikvision. And I always like to start with a quote if I start a presentation. And this is the quote of Mark Udell, former US Senator. And he said, the balance between freedom and security is a delicate one. And that's also, I think, what it is. If you look at the balance between surveillance, video surveillance, and security and privacy. So that's something which I'm going to discuss this next 15 minutes. So let me first introduce myself very shortly. I was also introduced by Migle, but this is me. This is my official story. So I'm working a long time in this field, and I'm also the Director of Cybersecurity and Privacy for EMEA, so I'm also the DPO. But besides, this is the official story. This is my own story. I call myself a cybersecurity nerd. I'm crazy about sports and addicted to chocolate. Perhaps there's a link. And I'm a former professional soccer player, but that's about 20 kilograms ago. So that's about me. This is about Hikvision, and Hikvision is a Chinese company founded in 2001 as a video surveillance company, but currently it's an IoT manufacturer with a focus on video. We have more than 38,000 employees working worldwide, and out of these 38,000, we have more than 19,000 working in the R&D. So we are very innovative. We make our own products, and we have 500 technology partners in 150 countries. And that's the official story. And my story about this company is that although it's a Chinese company, it's not linked whatsoever to the Chinese Communist Party. It's a public company with stakes, with stocks in the stockholder market. There's never ever been any evidence of a backdoor, because a lot of Chinese companies are being accused of having a backdoor in their products, and or espionage. Espionage is simply not possible when you do video surveillance. And finally, we are also committed to cybersecurity, and we have to be compliant to the GDPR as any other company. So we take this very seriously. So I would like to emphasize that we are very transparent, and that's also one of the reasons why they hired me, because I'm a criticaster, and I would like always to ask the questions on cybersecurity and privacy in this case. So that's me and the company. And before I start my presentation, or during this presentation, I would like to start with a short video to explain video surveillance. So it's 1.5 minutes, so let's start. Yeah, what you could see from this short video is that it's going fast with the developments in video surveillance, and it's even going faster. So that's why I came up with this slide. And what you see now is that video surveillance is not only about presenting what people, or what in this case cameras see, but it's also collecting data. And that's basically, of course, the essence of this story. And what you can see here is that, and that's why I circled those words, deep learning technology. And that all has to do with big data, large amounts of data being processed in the camera. And that is what you can see now in the video surveillance market. And to take it one step deeper into this is that deep learning is a machine learning method based on artificial intelligence and video analytics, which gives video security cameras the ability to analyze video data on board. It's one of the applications of deep learning. And here you can see how it's done in a simple example. But basically what I want to tell you with this slide is that video surveillance is much more than just showing what's happening. It is collecting data and also at the same time analyzing this data in the video camera nowadays, also mentioned by the previous speaker. So that's important to know, because today's video surveillance, and also for the future, is that in a camera, of course, you can see, in this case, a person, but you can also detect the temperature of a person, and you can detect if this person is wearing a mask or not. And you have more things that a camera nowadays can do. So video surveillance is more than just showing what's happening. And this is all, I think, linked to privacy. And that's also what you see, it's the problem here. And also, if you look at the trends in the future, I came to this picture, is the physical security trends for 2021. And what you can see here is that number 3, business will focus on privacy protection. So on one hand, we have that opportunity and the chance to collect a lot of data and do smart things with this data. In this case, a camera itself can detect if you're wearing a mask or you don't wear a mask, if your temperature is elevated or it's not elevated. And they can even identify you with face recognition, deep learning technologies. But on the other hand, it's also about privacy protection. That's why it's going, I think, hand in hand, also as the previous speaker said. And there's no dilemma, and I will come back to this later on. So what you can see now is that, well, what's the problem? What is the problem? Well, the problem or the issue is the GDPR. And it's not the GDPR itself. The GDPR is good. It's good that the GDPR is there. But the issue here is the fact that the surveillance possibilities seem to clash with the privacy requirements. And that's what you see. And in a video surveillance overview, and with the GDPR in hand, and these are the requirements of GDPR. I'm not going to talk about these in detail because you probably all know of these, but it's just, if you get the slides, it's just to look it up again. But what you see here is that the responsibilities of the GDPR have to be handled by different parties, and we have to work together on this. It's not that the customers can do it by themselves, that the manufacturer, in this case Hikvision, can do it by themselves, or the installers can do it by themselves. No, it's a triangle, and that's important that everybody has to work together, and that's important that everybody has to be aware of these things. And if you look at the customer is at the end responsible for the data handling. And if you talk about data inside the camera, as I mentioned, there's a lot of data inside the camera, a lot of smart data inside the camera. And of course, there's personal data inside the camera. But at the end, the customer is responsible for handling this data. The manufacturer who builds the cameras, they have to make sure that this camera is built secure by design, and also privacy by design, and secure by default, and privacy by default. And I will come back to this later on. But that's a key, I think, responsibility for a manufacturer, that they have to build these cameras with this in mind. And finally, the installer also has to play a role in this, because this installer has to make sure that the network on which the camera is placed must be secured and cannot be accessed by anybody who wants to access this camera. So if you can make a very secure camera, and the customer is very aware of how to handle the data, but the installer is installing this camera with an open port to the internet, it doesn't work. And privacy is not protected, and so is security is not protected. So it is a triangle of responsibilities, and that's very important. And yes, video surveillance is allowed. A lot of people say, yeah, video surveillance is not allowed because of the GDPR, because of privacy. Well, that is incorrect. Video surveillance is allowed, but you have to stick to the GDPR. You have to stick to the rules. That's also why I like the GDPR. The GDPR sets a framework. And make sure that you always have a legitimate basis for video surveillance, Article 6 of the GDPR. You must have a lawfulness reason why you do this. Very important. And yes, you cannot do face recognition if there are other things that you can do the same things with. You don't take face recognition as a first primary means to do things. So, and yes, video surveillance in essence is processing personal data. Although there are discussions going on that, for example, temperature by itself is not personal data, which is true, but most of the time it's linked to an identification of a person, or the camera footage is stored or is analyzed. So then you're processing personal data. So you have to go back to the rules. So always stick to the rules. And in that case, if you stick to the GDPR, yes, video surveillance is allowed, but you have to stick to the rules. And one of the rules, and one of the most important rules, is Article 5. And Article 5 tells you how to process personal data. So if you're doing something with video surveillance, you have to follow Article 5 because you're processing personal data 9 out of the 10 times. And the most important thing for me here is that this processing of personal data needs to be done in a secure way. And that is, I think, a responsibility of, in this case, the camera producer. And that's also what I said. The data protection within the camera can be done with appropriate security, as mentioned in Article 5. And that is secure by design and secure by default. And these are the definitions that I took from a UK publication, but it tells you that secure by design has to make sure that the person who is producing, in this case, a video camera, has to make sure that this is done in the most secure way, but also with privacy in mind. So secure by default means that you have settings in the camera that you can use to make it as secure, and in this case, as privacy related as possible. So I think this is very important, that whenever you discuss video surveillance, that you look, okay, who produced the camera and what kind of secure by design or secure by default or secure by default did this camera producer employ? This is very important. Which brings me to my 5 takeaways of this presentation. And the first one is always respect privacy. And you can hear that I'm a fan of privacy, although that might not always be important for yourself, it might be very important for others. Stick to the local and national laws and explain the lawfulness, Article 6 of GDPR. Better safe than sorry. If you implement video surveillance, if you're using video surveillance, make sure that you stick to the rules and make sure that you implemented Article 5. Make sure that you don't keep the data longer than necessary. Make sure that you secure the data. Make sure that nobody can access the data who is not allowed to. Those are the things that you have to take care of. And the fourth is that you have to analyze, as I mentioned before, secure by design and secure by default of the surveillance camera itself. So ask those questions to the manufacturer. Although the end user is responsible for the privacy part, you can ask those questions to the manufacturer and also the installer. And in case of doubt, get support, ask for assistance, ask for legal counsel, ask for the DPA, and ask a qualified lawyer or law firm for this. And those are the 5 takeaways. And with these 5 takeaways, I think you're doing a good job. And with these 5 takeaways, there is no privacy dilemma. At least I don't believe there's a privacy dilemma, because as a friend of mine, Mikko Hipponen, said, privacy is implied. Privacy is not up for discussion. And also, speaking with the previous speaker, we can do it both. So we have to make sure that we can collect the data, we do the surveillance, but we have to do it in a privacy-related way. So we have to do it both. And with that, Mikle, I will thank you for your attention. I will stop sharing my presentation and I'm open for questions. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Fred. It was very interesting to hear, and it's actually a very good recap of all of our today's presentations, probably, and very good points added to our discussion. So I believe that we all understand that video surveillance and privacy is embedded there, so we have to really respect it all the time. My probably one very quick question is that well, we heard from previous speakers, including Gela, that mass surveillance and artificial intelligence is already there in the cameras. Everything is already implemented. We have the technologies which are really, really very fast forwarding. What's next? What holds us for us in the future in terms of privacy and video surveillance? Have any ideas?
Yeah, that's a good question. What's next? I think, as you already mentioned, artificial intelligence is one of the things, and things are going faster and faster. And that's also, I think we are just at the beginning of this evolution. But I think that's also why it's so important to have these discussions, that we would stick to the privacy regulations. That, like I said, technology, a lot of things are possible, and I know everything from everybody if I want to, but I think we should be very careful with this. So we should hold back the speed here, and and make sure that we do this in a secure by design, in a privacy by design way. And I know this is hard because we are already on a train that is going fast. But always, well, stay a criticaster. Stay a criticaster yourself. And yes, of course, you can ask the questions to Chinese companies. Hey, show us how transparent you are. Show what are you doing with the data. Is it possible to send the data to somewhere else? Ask those questions. So be a criticaster. And I'm always inviting people that are criticasters to us. Ask the questions, and we have to show it to you. I think that's very important. So be a criticaster. And you ask me the question, where do you think it's going? Well, I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's going towards what we currently have. A lot of data, a lot of machine learning, artificial intelligence, and the combination of it. But yeah, again, I hope that the privacy forefighters, so to say, the privacy protection officers, that they just stay relevant, and that they stay influential, that they can say, hey, hold on, yes, we know you can do this, but we need to keep this in a most secure and privacy related way. And that's the only thing I hope, and I always do the same. So I always say to people, well, ask the questions. You should know, and know what's going on under the hood. And that's hard with today's technology and with things going that fast, but you have to. So it's probably not a good answer on your question, but that's at least what I can say about it.
That's a very good answer, Fred. Thank you very much, and a perfect presentation. Thanks a lot.